So, you're talking a lot about the qualities that you have, to become successful, and you're advocating for yourself, which you've mentioned a lot of that in here. The other thing I thought was really interesting is when you were putting together your business case and in several, as you were pivoting in each situation, and they were great examples that you had in your chapter, but you talked about making you sort of important to the firm. You know, you are an asset to the firm. You can deliver X, Y, and Z. And that's what it is in consulting. I worked at KPMG just like you did. I worked at Anderson also. I mean, so we both have a lot of consulting experience. And it's like, what can you sell? What can you bring to the table? What clients can you bring when you come in each of these divisions? All of that's important. So tell me a little bit more of that on how you really positioned yourself as, I mean, you went to get into marketing, you really had to put a business case that said, look, I'm an asset and this is
hmm
what I can do for you. Can you talk about
hmm
that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So that transition then into marketing was tough because, like you said, like I had no marketing experience, and so a lot of it, I came to the realization of like, all right, I don't have on paper marketing experience, and this is where like I should have realized I should be in sales at this point because I had to sell the crap out of this thing because I wasn't at all a marketer. So what I was trying to do is every time I got into a conversation, whether it was a formal interview or just someone feeling me out, what instead of talking about marketing experience as you would on a resume, I tried to take the history that I had at KPMG, which at the time was 5 years in tax in the client delivery side, and reframe what marketing experience means. So for me, I was redefining the term marketing experience. That was my whole initiative there. If you want to call it a business case, you're giving me a lot of credit there. It was really just trying to redefine what marketing experience was.
Hmm.
So they wanted 8 to 10 years. What does that mean? And so what I did was I was like, what does success look like in marketing? What are you guys trying to achieve? And in marketing at the time, I found out from my friend that they had been interviewing for this position, this manager position, couldn't find the right candidates because all the candidates had good marketing experience, but no industry experience, no experience like in the KPMG environment in the market. So for me, I was just taking that 5 years that I spent having multiple busy seasons every year on the ground with the client in the trenches with the account teams and say, look at all these proposals that I did. Look at all these boards that I'm on in the market. Look at all the network that I have, and using case studies from my time in tax to say that's kind of considered marketing. I kept calling it innate marketing. I'm like, look, that was kind of marketing. What is this? What is marketing in business in the business and the corporate services and consulting environment? What is marketing? Like, it's not Coca-Cola, it's not Starbucks, right? Like, so what are we marketing here? We're marketing our people, our capabilities, making sure everybody knows we're not a radio station. Like, what are we marketing here? Like, we're marketing the people. And so I just kept saying, look, I am one of the people. After 5 years, I know all the acronyms. I know our clients. I know our industries. I have a great internal network. I know all the different teams that we need to pull together. And then lastly, the one thing that I added to my business case that I think resonated well was like the idea that the biggest, and I kept asking, like, what's the biggest initiative of marketing right now? Like, what's the biggest hurdle that they're dealing with? And at the time, maybe it still exists to an extent. Marketing with the KPMG was seen as sort of outside. Like, they had the account team, lead account partner, and all the different service lines. And then marketing was more seen as sort of reactive than proactive. We'll call you if we need anything, or if we need some white papers. Like, it was very reactive. And we'll call you when we need you. So I try to tap into that sensitivity by saying, what better way to kind of bridge the gap between marketing and client service than pulling someone from client service? Like, I've seen how we can deploy marketing. I've seen how we can market to our clients. And if I come over there, I, I can help bridge the gap. I can make that my initiative to make sure marketing is seen as sort of the tip of the spear along with the client service delivery team. And so that was one of the things that I added there is like, yes, I'm not your typical candidate, but if you think about marketing experience, I can redefine what that means. I try to redefine what that means. And then the challenge becomes they say yes, and now you have to go fulfill all these promises. It's like running for a political, position and being elected. It's like, oh crap, I made a lot of promises on the campaign trail. Like I have to go make sure I execute these. So anyway, long-winded way of saying that's a lot of what the strategy was about.
Okay, so what was your secret for developing new relationships, and how did you leverage each one of them as you pivoted and made a move? You're really good, and you have a book about relationships. You talk about it on a lot of your LinkedIn. You're very
Mhm.
successful at building relationships. So can you elaborate about that? Talk about leveraging them?
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's tough because I'm like, I could tell, I could. So the first thing I'll say might be nuanced. That might be a little bit unique to me, and then I'll say some more general things. But like for me, when I'm with somebody, like when you and I first met, like we didn't know each other. Like what, so but for me, like I really enjoy when I meet somebody new, and like just the people who are on here, like I wish I could just take a break and go talk to all of them. I just have that. I really like to be around people and I like to be with them and learn more about them. So a lot of the relationship development stuff, it's the long game. It's the fact that if I spoke to you once, I'm going to do whatever I can to speak to you again because there's probably some thing that came up in our conversation that I want to follow up on. I'm genuinely curious about people. I want to learn more about them. The strategy of it all sort of comes secondary. Like if you genuinely don't like people and you don't want to be around them, everything that I say after that's going to kind of fall flat because you're going to be like, yeah, but I would rather just go home and not have an afternoon coffee with somebody that I don't know. So that's what I mean. Like there has to be some general foundational interest and curiosity about meeting other people. After that, then the strategy can come in because one of the things I'm trying to do is, and tell us a lot. I talk about this a lot when I'm presenting and teaching. Is if you want something from somebody, I don't even know what it is yet, but I just know at some point I might need your help with something. It's important, and this is how I describe it. It's important to build the bridge and then get them to walk over it. And by that I mean building the bridge is figuring out how I can help you. Like what can I do for you? And it could be something so off the wall, something I didn't at all anticipate. Whatever it is, I need to build the bridge. I need to find a way to help you. I need to offer it. I need to get you to accept. Once you accept my help for any reason, that means I've built the bridge, you walked over it. I'm not counting IOUs here. I'm not doing debits and credits on favors, but I just know that now that bridge exists. You've accepted my help on something. So then you won't be confused or offended when I walk back over the bridge and ask you for something. We've established that whatever relationship we have is a relationship based on us trying to help each other be successful, be happy, or whatever. But I need to make the first move before I make an ask. That's my own thing. I can't ask you for a favor until I've done something for you first. So that's, if you want to think about the strategy, that's a lot of the strategy. And even just this morning, I sent an introduction for two people that I think will be helpful with a friend of mine's going through some issue with his family, and I introduced him to somebody that I think can help with that thing. I'll leave it there, but the whole point there is like that wasn't work related, and this somebody that's really close to me, but no, I'm always trying to figure out what's that next thing I could do to help you, so that when I do have an ask to make, like, hey, can you back me on this new transition? Can you introduce me to some people who are I'm behind my sales goals. I need some referrals here. Can you help me out? Whatever it might be, that ask is so much easier once I have established that I've built the bridge and you've walked back over it. And then the last thing I'll say, I'll maybe jump ahead to like the last part of my chapter is the transition from marketing into sales was for all intents and purposes the most difficult transition. Even though I had a great brand at the time, I thought it would be easy. It was way more difficult, and not because of individual personalities. I don't. There's no one I really need to drag through the mud here. It was just there was so much precedent of this not going well. KPMG in the past had tried to bring people that without sales experience from inside the firm over into the sales role, and it failed every time. I heard all of the stories. I mean, we tried it with this person, we tried it with that person, and it never worked. They weren't good at selling. And now here I come, and I'm like, I think I want to try to be in sales. And they're like, let me stop you right there. We've tried this many, many times. It doesn't work. And that was the one time that no matter, I had a great brand, I had a ton of people who were supporting me and were calling on the business development team and saying, you got to give this guy Sean a look. I think he'd be really good at it. I had the marketing team even calling them because they were like, this is where he should be. Um, and this is, well, two things. I'll stop talking, Cynthia. This is, so the one part of this, the transition that I learned was like, this is why I talked about my highest and best use. And this is, you mentioned this earlier, like for the transition into sales, I laid it all out. I said, here is my me as an asset, right? And this is what I borrowed some terminology from my valuation days. In valuation, when you're valuing assets, you value an asset based on its highest and best use, meaning that a fleet of snow blowers in Tampa, Florida has a value of zero. It doesn't mean that the snow blowers are worth nothing. It means you're not using them for their highest and best use. They belong up here in Buffalo or something like that, right? Once an asset is being looked at its highest and best use, then that's the fair market value. I think the same way for us as people. What is my highest and best use? If I'm not being deployed where I should be, and I'm a lawnmower being valued in Antarctica, then maybe I'm not being valued. I'm not being deployed at my highest and best use. I belong, towards the equator or something like that, where there's a lot of grass. So that's where I put this whole idea out in the transition to BD. I'm like, here's who I am. And I laid it all out in the business case. This is Sean Hand as an asset. And I had a 20-page slide deck, I had all this stuff. And it was an objective look at who I am. And I'm like, here I am as an asset. You tell me if I don't belong in sales, then all right. But here's who I am. Here's me as an asset. And everybody except for the key decision makers thought it was a good idea. The key decision makers were like, that's a really cute slide deck. No, the answer is no. We said it before. And so this is where like the second lesson of that transition came into play is I talked about this sometimes. I say sometimes you can't get in. The door is locked. And so you try to like jiggle the handle, you try to pick the lock, doesn't work. Try to find an open window that maybe you can crack open and sneak in that way. That doesn't work. Is there a fire escape I can sneak through? No. Is there like an underground tunnel? How do I get in? And in that case, everything was locked. It was a fortress. I couldn't get in. And in the book, I talk about sometimes you just have to find your battering ram. Like if you really want what's in there and everything else is closed, sometimes you just need a battering ram. And for me, there was an executive at KPMG. I just rehashed this story with him. I saw him down at the lake house a little bit ago, and I rehashed this with him. We both had a good chuckle about it. But he's still an executive at KPMG. He was an executive at the time. I was about a year and a half into this transition strategy, and everything was locked. And so I was like, I need a battering ram at this point. So I had built a decent relationship with him on a like, if you need me, call me basis, but I never took advantage of it too much. And I sent him an email. I lied to him. I said, I'm going to be in and out of New York for the next couple of weeks. Let me know if you're free for like 15 minutes. We'd love to catch up. I was not at all intending to be up in New York, but he gave me a date and a time. And I said, oh my gosh, perfect. Like I'm actually going to be in New York that day. Again, another lie. And so I jumped on an Excella, headed up to New York, met with him, showed him my business plan, my like glossy 20-page business plan. And he looked at a classic power move. It's still one of my favorite lines is he looked at it and I'm sitting on the other side of the desk and he goes, we only have about 20 minutes. He goes, do you mind if I just go to the last slide and see what you want? And I was like, yeah, man, go for it. Sure. It's very glossy. And so he went to the end and he was like, all right, you want to be in sales? I said, yes. He said, what's stopping you? So I sort of laid it all out for him. Here's all. And he said, all right, is that it? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, all right, well, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. Shook hands, all pleasantries. And I left. And that was it. I got on the Excella back to Philly. My wife's like, how'd it go? At the time I had, kids at home and stuff. And my wife was like, how'd it go? I was like, well, my career will be different from this point forward. I was like, I just hope it was in a good way. And sure enough, that battering ram came through, and some people started to call me and give me a look that I think they didn't want to, but were voluntold to at least give this guy a chance. And then, the rest kind of up to me.